Hello, everyone. My name is Jansen Davidson. I'm the Director of Sales and Services for Novacura North America. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to participate in today's webinar. Just to let you know, you all will be muted until the end, so that I'll go ahead and just go through the presentation, and then just know that you will be muted, and then we'll use the chat functions of the webinar, which some of you have already used, to go ahead and ask questions towards the end. I have been with Novacura for about a year and a half. So I, with Greg Warner, work here in the US office in Cincinnati, Ohio. So what we're going to do today in today's webinar is cover the following agenda items. We're going to cover really quickly the introductions, which really is just a very brief overview of Novacura and what we do. We'll then move to the why businesses are extending to IFS with mobile apps, how Novacura Flow mobile apps is enhancing IFS. We'll then go into a user story with Covia, one of our customers, and how they were able to improve and extend IFS to take care of and improve upon mobile work orders. And then towards the end, we're going to take a look at the Novacura Flow work order app. So when we talk about extending IFS, we are talking about, specifically with this webinar, the focus is mobile work order, and then at the end, we're going to go ahead and have some Q&A. So, but I do want to let you know that this webinar is going to kind of target the area of mobile work orders. It's one of several ways that we extend IFS, but so the demo you see, the story you hear about from Covia, again, will be kind of around the mobile work order area. So introductions. A little bit about Novacura. The product itself is a low-code business process management platform. I like to call it a layer that allows customers, IFS, or really any ERP system or customer, to connect to everything. On the other side of this is our consulting services organization. That's more on the Scandinavia area, but we do have a consulting services division of Novacura. We're going to be focusing obviously on kind of the platform side of it, and again, and how it helps IFS customers extend IFS. Here's just a snapshot of our current Novacura customers in North America, and they are all on IFS. So again, we started the Novacura office about 2 years ago. I was brought on about 6 months after it got launched by Greg Warner. All the customers you see here, again, as the slide shows, are IFS, and they all extend IFS using the Novacura layer, the Novacura platform. And we'll go into a little bit more detail here in a little bit. So the big question, why are businesses having to extend IFS applications? When you look at IFS, it is a pretty flexible ERP system. So again, the purpose of this webinar is to share kind of the data, the stories, and what we're hearing in North America, what I've heard over in the last year and a half as a sales and services director, and share what we're coming across with why people are having to extend IFS. I've basically boiled it down into three main reasons. Okay, three main reasons why businesses are extending IFS. They want to simplify the usability. Our North America customers and businesses have to preserve critical business processes. And these customers are telling us they're having trouble and need to do a better job of keeping pace with rapid changes in the technology. So those are the three areas we're going to hone in on for this webinar, and then again, towards the end, we'll cover a little bit in the demo. So, simplify. We're looking to simplify usability, preserve critical business processes, and keep pace with changes in technology. So, looking at the usability aspect for a moment, our customers are asking us to help them find ways to increase user adoption. When you look at the Novacura layer, we are able to very easily simplify the UI to accommodate the less tech savvy, let's say, technicians, operator, maybe an aging workforce. So by nature, most ERP systems, and it's not just IFS, most ERP system are really meant for the back office administrative worker. You know, they're in climate controlled areas. They're typing away. They're doing what they do. The usability becomes a challenge when these systems require the information or data from our technicians that are out in the field. They might have to work on point two. They might have to work online. They might be in very remote areas. They might be running on a variety of different devices. So everything I'm showing you today runs on iOS, runs on Android, runs on Windows Mobile, and as a web client. So the purpose of this screen is really kind of to illustrate, you look at the left side, you see I'm sure a very familiar IFS screen, a prepare work order screen. And as with most ERP systems, they're very field heavy. There's drop downs. There's folder drop downs. I've got in some cases, you got to maybe drag to highlight several rows and then right click and then select a list of options from there, like populate, create invoice. You get the idea. You're familiar with that UI experience. You contrast that with the screen on the right. It's really the same area I would be working on in IFS if I had to. But over there on the right, you see an example of how we extended IFS, let's say, to simplify this part of the work order. I took all those fields and I took those drop downs and all those that screen clutter, so to speak, and I simplified it. And I'm now on the right side, I'm only showing what the user really needs to see and care about. And again, you can see that by creating this, what we call a flow, I'm able to query the data I need and just provide it in simple list drop-downs, multi-selection drop-downs, and things like that. So usability is a big one, is a big reason why we're being asked to help extend IFS. Reason number two, we're being asked to help customers preserve critical business processes business-wide. In many cases, these business processes, it's not just a process, but they provide a competitive advantage. So we have one customer in particular that their quoting process allows them to quote and get a quote to a customer faster than their competition. So they would tell you that the first to quote wins the deal. So it's situations like that, customers need to be able to extend IFS to accommodate those processes, because you're really left with only a couple options, right? You either change your business, right, to conform with the ERP feature set or the maybe even the limitations. Well, from what we're hearing in North America, customers aren't really open to that idea. Option number two, you customize the ERP system, whether it's IFS or any other, you customize it to conform to the business processes you're trying to keep and preserve. That's definitely an option. But it comes with a price tag, right? I mean, you're now having a significant investment in customizing the ERP system, and you do have to worry about migrating those customizations over several years as point releases of that ERP system are made out. So the idea with this screen is on the left, you kind of see this idea of a process tool, and this again is the Novacura Studio, where we draw out the process. We're helping customers easily support multi-tier approval processes. Case in point with this, and I'm going to use the work order analogy or example. It's not that ERPs can't support work orders or prepare work orders or manage work orders. That is a standard feature in any ERP system. Where ERP systems, or where we're seeing IFS maybe struggle, is the ability to maintain and support the various processes and sub-processes behind the scene. Case in point, the screen here on the right. And this is actually a screenshot from the Covia project. They need to be able to not only execute the work order, but the technician has to provide and prepare a risk assessment. This technician has to provide an inspection report, has to issue a supervisor then, after seeing those reports, has to issue a permit to approve the work order. So several processes and sub-processes have to be met before a work order is even executed. So that's why reason number two is so common, because customers are needing the ability to quickly change and adapt that process. Another good example is we're working on a project where the government changes, certain standards, and those standards might come out once a year, once every 5 years. Being able to kind of be fluid or have an environment that allows you to implement those processes quickly is very helpful. So that's reason number 2. Reason 1 is usability. Reason number 2, preserve critical processes. And reason 3 that we're seeing is why people are extending IFS is to help them and position themselves to be in a better spot to keep pace with the technology. So when you look here at the screen, I've actually got kind of an older version of IFS screen, and you look to the right, I have things that we're hearing about every day: IoT, mobility, and Industry 4.0. How do I take a system which by nature is rigid, doesn't move, isn't too dynamic, and then make it all of a sudden be something that can handle frequent changes and things that are moving quickly, like technology? Again, this is what the Novacura layer is providing our customers, so that they can now take their ERP, and again, not necessarily unique to IFS, but they can mobilize that ERP. They can now integrate that ERP or IFS into other systems. They're now in a position to be IoT and Industry 4.0 ready, and we're supporting various digitalization initiatives. So what I mean by digitalization, I think the best example is, and I'll use Covia as an example again, is look, a lot of these reports and inspections and permits were all done by paper out in the field, which that's a very manual process, very time consuming. We've now moved it into, as you can see on the screen on the right, an app, a mobility app. So the idea being, again, here is that ERP systems, not everybody's ready to bite the bullet on a brand new ERP system or even maybe a major upgrade. So the idea here is that, don't assume that you need the newest, latest ERP or IFS system to make, to be mobile or to integrate to other systems or to be IoT ready and ready for digitalization. That's not necessarily the case when you consider the option of providing a Novacura layer on top of IFS. So to recap, right, the main reasons we're extending IFS that we're being told by the customers, the IFS community, is again to the usability, increased usability of IFS, extending it out that way, preserving critical business processes, and here putting customers in a position where they can better keep pace with the technology and the changes of it. So we covered the whys. Why are we extending IFS? Why is this a conversation, a frequent conversation in meetings and what's going on? Now we're going to kind of move to the how. So there was a lot to take in with what we just covered. There's a lot of reasons, and we just named just a couple, right? We just named 3 reasons why we extend IFS or why and how we help customers extend IFS, but there's probably dozens. But it really doesn't matter because the how is going to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss what we're seeing in the IFS community work and work very well and work efficiently and cost effectively. And it really is kind of simple. The how is we extend IFS applications by putting on this Novacura layer or a business process layer. The idea is that we no longer try to force the ERP system to do all of these things on this top layer. As I mentioned earlier, these things that are going on, process changes, IoT, mobility, 4.0, they're actually the exact antithesis of an ERP system. ERP systems they're slow moving, they're rigid, they're utilitarian systems. Once you put them in, you kind of have what you have. You can't customize them. We talked about that. But what we're saying here is that, and what we're seeing work is that, look, add a layer, add this, Gartner would call it a bimodal layer, and add it on top of IFS. Let your processes and the things that set you apart from your competition live in this layer. Let your IoT initiatives and projects live in this layer. Let your mobility and your apps live in this layer. And let all the communications and the integrations that are going beyond the scene, the other subsystems, live in this layer. So that really is the how. So when you install this platform, it's going to just basically connect and consume the data from IFS, and it's going to update IFS based on what the user selects here in the app and so forth. So that's the how. This is how we're extending IFS. Once that layer is added as Novacura Flow, this is what our customers are doing and are now able to do, right? They're able to define their own process. They're able to connect to any system. It's not uncommon for us to come across a company or a customer who has, let's say, IFS and SAP on the landscape, right? They've got IFS for work order, but for whatever reason, the HR component still lives in SAP. So in those cases, I might have to connect to the SAP system for certain pieces of data and IFS for the rest. So that's what I mean by connect to any business system. And then we covered earlier, run it on any device and then make it available to anyone everywhere. Again, everything I'm showing you today runs on Android, iOS, and on Windows Mobile. So the kind of the takeaway with this slide is freedom. Look, customers have made significant investments in the ERP software and the services it takes to install it and implement it. What we're helping customers do, and what really it's kind of where the market's taken us, is look, these customers want to be in more control, right? We live in a time where things move and change way too much to be held hostage by limitations in the ERP system. I need more flexibility, and I don't want to spend a lot of money doing it. And so that's what we're keeping us busy, I should say, here in North America, is helping customers be free to do what they need to do. So we've covered briefly the main reasons why we're extending IFS. How do you extend IFS? And we're going to cover in more detail on that when we get to the demo. But let's just kind of take it to real life for a moment. Let's just talk about Covia and what they're doing and how they're using this concept of a business layer on top of IFS. Here were their challenges, their main challenges, I should say, before the project. Is Covia, and it's a mining industry. So there's a lot of large equipment being worked on and fixed, and there's a lot going on in troubleshooting and repairing and doing work orders for these large, I would say, construction like pieces of equipment. But their challenges were they have a very extensive approval and documentation process. I mean, there's several checks and balances that have to be met before a work order is even executed. They have and had a tech-adverse field personnel. So they not all of them were really that tech savvy. In fact, I would say just almost kind of resistant to it. There was a lack of access to drawings and manuals when they're out in the field. All of these really, all of these combined is what reduced at the bottom point the wrench time. So when I say wrench time, I mean the time actually spent executing on that work order, changing the oil in this equipment or whatever. So much time was spent getting all these other things done that there really wasn't a whole heck of a lot of time left over to actually do the work, and it was costing the company millions of dollars. So those are the challenges that Covia faced. How did we do that? Well, it's kind of a repeat of the previous slide. The fix was, okay, we're going to go ahead and they went down the path of trying different things and customizations to this, to IFS. And it was decided that, look, it's just way too much process stuff to try to cram and try to customize IFS or any other ERP to do all of these things. So let's go this route. Let's go ahead and add this Mode 2 layer on top, and we're going to start building our own work orders in a way that complements our business and our processes. So here's a slide or a screenshot of one of several of the Covia apps. And so as I mentioned earlier, one of their processes before they can even execute a work order is to fill out a last-minute risk assessment. And these were previously checkboxes on a Word document or a PDF, that was in a file folder, for the tech each morning, is now a tablet app that they can go ahead and fill out this information and all the things that are specific to them. And down here at the bottom is kind of nice. You're actually seeing what we're using in IFS to capture this data that's out in the field and put it in IFS. So we essentially leverage standard functionality of IFS, which is like his surveys. And we said, okay, well, whatever information they take in the app, we're going to go ahead and use surveys in IFS to record that data. So this is one of many apps that we've done for them for the project. Manuals and FaceTime. So we have, as part of this app, again, as I mentioned earlier, one of their challenges is accessibility to some of the drawings and manuals. You know, they're working with some very heavy-duty machines, and it's not. And sometimes they're fixing things they've never fixed, so they have to be able to pull up these PDF documents while they're out in the field instead of going back to the office and pulling them out and so forth. So as part of this app, we've extended IFS to make available these work orders on the tablet so that they can go ahead and sort these work orders by technicians, by the inspections they have to do. If there are documents specific to that work order that is relevant to that work order, we're showing them down here in these lists. And also, if they do here on the right corner, if they do need to go ahead and make a FaceTime call, they can go ahead and do that from the app as well. And we've already seen this where when they are repairing a piece of equipment, being able to FaceTime and ask maybe somebody who has more experience with this particular piece of equipment on FaceTime has been very helpful for them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and transition us to the demo. The demo has two main parts. The first part is I'm just going to show you, again, we talked about the focus on mobile work orders. I'm going to show you our standard mobile work order app. Mobile work orders is one of our most common requests for IFS or for extending IFS. And so I thought I'd start off with the demo. So with that, and then I'm going to go ahead and go into the flow behind the scenes, or that layer we keep talking about, that process layer that I keep talking about, and how we're able to extend IFS with it. So let me just go ahead and close out of this, and we'll go into my service management. So when we talk about, again, extending IFS, you're going to hear me use the terms apps a lot, kind of going forward, because apps is how we're also kind of, for kind of consolidating everything. We're building apps to help extend IFS. We use our own apps internally. So as a company, Novacura is on IFS, and I'll show you some things we do internally to extend it so that it's easier for us to use, like time tracking and reporting. But for now, we'll go ahead and run through my mobile work order create fault report app. So I have several here. I've got several apps in this list, some of which you guys probably can relate to, shop order reporting. I'm running this from Windows Mobile on my laptop, and the reason is this app is created to be and support offline, so that if I am a technician who's going to be in a remote area, I can go ahead and download the data. The system will download the data ahead of time, cache it locally on the device so that that technician go ahead and perform their work orders. So I'm the technician, and I have a couple personas represented here. As the technician, I'm going to create a fault report, but as a supervisor, I'm going to go ahead and review it and assign it back to the tech. So I really kind of have two main roles going on here. We call them swim lanes, but again, it goes back to what we discussed earlier. Customers need to support, when they extend IFS, to support multi-tier approval processes, and so this is a good example. So I'm the technician, and I'm going to go ahead and do or create a fault report. Maybe I'm on the manufacturing floor, and I have to do some inspections and things like that. So let's give this thing a quick second to update. I think I might have timed out. I had this open for a long time without doing anything with it. So let me just kind of go back. Okay, so I'm here in create fault report. I'm in basic fault information. So these are common fields in IFS, but again, in contrast to that other screen, if I was in the area of IFS, this would be a lot busier. I would have folders and drop downs and various fields to fill out. But here I'm only going to just select what I really want this user to worry about. And these are all queries being made to IFS, so I'm actually demoing right off of my right off an IFS system. Maybe I need to put my mechanical department next. Directive. I can upload photos if I need to, all of which can be uploaded and saved into DocMan in IFS if need be. Okay, so I just created the fault report, and now I have new fault reports. So now I'm kind of pretend I'm the supervisor, and I'm now looking at some of the fault reports that I have that might be assigned or need to be assigned to a tech. So I had 3 in my inbox, and here I am as the supervisor. I'm reviewing the work order, test, fault, okay, description, and I'm going to go ahead and prepare this work order. So as the supervisor, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, replace the broken pipe. Assign Elaine, and I can, if I want, go ahead and say plan start, plan finished. Maybe there's some spare parts that as a supervisor I want to make sure they have. Maybe I want to make sure they have a spare valve, and so they don't have to worry about that later. And I can go ahead and save that. So go back to. All right, so now I have taken, this was a 2, this is now a 1, and this now I'm, as the technician, I've logged in for the day, and it looks like, okay, I've got 3 work orders assigned to me. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up. It's like, all right, let's go ahead and let's see what this, let's start with this work order. I'm making a change, report, cause details, water. So now I'm the technician, and I'm actually working the work order. If I want to add report time, or I want to go ahead and have them report the time on this particular work order, I can do that. I currently am a service manager. Let's just say I spent 4 hours on this, and I'm done. And so, and if there's other things I need to record as part of this work order, I can go ahead and do that. Or if I need to, maybe this particular work order had me replacing a valve, but also the pipe and maybe an electrical switch and all of those things. If the company or the customer needs to really separate that and track that separately, they can. I think we're going to be done here. Let me just go back. Yes, I don't want that item. I just want to go back. Okay, so that right there was kind of an extension of, or how we extend IFS to support fault reporting and mobile work orders. Okay. I could go here also, so maybe just, for the manufacturing folks on the call, if shop order is probably a close second to where and how we extend IFS. Shop floor people, at least in the States, we've got one customer is, they're welders, they're wearing gloves, putting them in front of an ERP system to track their hours against indirect and direct operations is not an easy thing to do. So being able to, build an app that has buttons, or maybe they scan the various indirect operations as a barcode, and where they don't even have to type, is all things that are very easy to do within our system. But this is an example how we might extend IFS to address shop floor reporting activities in IFS. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I can go ahead and provide the user the work center they're a part of, and then I can go ahead and make them clock in, report any indirect or direct operations, report the shop order itself, report and record any rework, and clock back out. So another common area we extend IFS is in shop floor reporting. Okay, so I'm going to go and quit out of this. That was the app. So you saw the app, the tech or worker-facing portion of this. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like behind the scenes as what we call the flow. So I am in Novacura Flow Studio, and I should add real quick that I don't intend this to be a deep technical dive or anything like this. I'm really just trying to provide the the holistic or the high level view of how this is all working and how this layer is added into the system on top of IFS. So if there's further interest on anything of what you see, then we can maybe take that offline. But so what we're looking at right now is Novacura Flow Studio. So you heard me mention earlier in the webinar that we're really just adding a layer on top of IFS to help support all these various needs to extend. What I have here are the flows behind that create fault report. I should say it's really just one major flow. But this studio allows you essentially just to basically drag and drop your process, okay? So I've got primarily looks like two swim lanes here. I've got the equipment operator. You saw that technician and what they were entering, and then you had the supervisor, and you may recall that that was a separate inbox. So what's a swim lane in the studio ends up or can be an inbox when you're looking at the app. So here I went ahead and I just basically created the process that I need to support internally as a business to support work orders and how we do it. And basically everywhere you see a user step, this user step here is basically what the user shows on the app or sees on the app. So here I'm querying IFS to get their equipment, the maintenance organization, discovery codes. As I scroll down through here, I'm querying IFS to get the employee information and so forth. So as the technician walks through, and I'll go ahead and open up one of these user steps, and you'll probably start to see, you remember in the app where I had the drop down, select equipment, and I had to select the maintenance organization I was a part of. These are the various web controls we offer to go ahead and list and display that data to the user. So it's really just a matter of just dragging and dropping what I want to show and the table I want to map to. I don't want to really show anything, change anything right now. But as I mentioned earlier, this particular flow has us at some point handing off to the supervisor. So the tech up here went ahead and reported the work order. Now that there's a handoff here that by default I should add will allow for push notification. So the supervisor doesn't necessarily have to be sitting there at their computer waiting for something to come across their inbox, but we can actually send a push notification letting a supervisor know that, hey, there's 3 work orders that need your attention. So as I scroll down here, I'm now in the supervisor role swim lane where they have to review the work order. Maybe they're querying a list of employees that they can assign this work order to. Again, a query coming out of IFS, and then a user screen that allows me to go ahead and prepare the work order. And then we save it, and everything gets saved and update status. So this would be what we call a machine step to update IFS on everything. So one thing I want to mention here is, it's not uncommon where multiple systems might have to be integrated to, right? I might have to maybe I'm pulling data from another system, like SAP or JD Edwards or something like that. That I can support that. So this might be, maybe it's the JD Edwards. I got to connect it. Maybe I want to use the same user step and I want to say, hey, look, employee information is going to come out of IFS, but the, I don't know, maybe rates or something's going to come out of JD Edwards, right? And so the idea, is again, being able to support multiple systems for this business process layer is very, very important. Okay, I'm just going to delete that. So as you can see here, I'm going to go back to the left. This is one out of several flows. So you saw the shop floor reporting flow that I had brought up earlier, again, or the app. This is the flow behind it. Once I publish these flows and save and publish, they're basically deployed as applications, mobile apps. And I have a list of them. So these are some very common areas where we're extending IFS in the area of administration, report absence, and things like that. If I scroll down here, logistics is another common area where we're extending IFS, move items into stock. Maybe I need to move a part, just some basic things here. So we're not necessarily starting from scratch on all of this, but we're providing some templates, you could say, to help extend IFS without customizing it. So that is kind of from the presentation perspective. That's where I'm drawn to a close, and I want to go ahead and use it as an opportunity to see where I can close any gaps. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to go ahead and ask? So maybe some more about integration. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So what I mean by that, and we can definitely take the deep dives, our technical deep dive offline if need be, but what often happens is, IFS is obviously one of many ERP systems or systems of record. It's not uncommon for us to come across people that have, let's say, CRM, our Salesforce CRM and IFS as the ERP. And when you consider having to, duplicate entries of things such as, look, if I want to add a customer in Salesforce, I just want that to go into IFS. I don't want to have to make that double entry. So what are our options? Well, as part of the right layer, I'm going to use some Gartner vernacular here. The right Mode 2 layer, I would say, allows you to, or should help do that. So what we do is we have the concept of machine flows. And when you look at a standard flow, everything we've been talking about so far has this idea of a UI, right? This is a process flow. It's meant to be, at the end of it all, be an application for a user to use. It's front facing, forward facing. We have this idea of machine flows, which is not a UI flow, but it is an integration flow. So if I go here and let me I'm going to call it a workflow, and I'm going to say this is my test machine flow. I have a couple options here. I have user workflow, which is what we've been talking about in all of this. And then I have this concept of machine workflow. So if I double click this, I gotta make sure I see my screen. Sorry about that. So what I had just created as I was talking about the machine flows is that, there's two main flows for us, this UI flow that we've been talking about throughout the webinar. And now we're moving to, customers who need to kind of integrate. Again, it's not uncommon for us to come across multiple systems. I'm not going to necessarily build a full-blown machine flow here, but the idea is that I can go ahead and drag and drop maybe if I look at Salesforce, these are this is our library of connectors. So I might have a REST, let's see here, salesforce.com, and I got to configure it. I'm going to configure it right now. But the idea is, I could have, whoops. And I'm going to drag and drop another connector so that it updates, let's say IFS, right? And so the idea is I'm building these connections to go ahead and synchronize data between multiple systems. So let me, and then I'll end it there. Very, very rudimentary example here, but you kind of get the idea where there's nothing UI about this. This is something that can run behind the scenes, but we've got customers who do need to synchronize data and maintain data integrity across multiple systems, and they're building these machine flows to do it. So again, I can easily spend a webinar session just on machine flows. Maybe that might be our next webinar, actually. So if you do want to hear more, see more, we can, again, take something offline on that. Yes. So IFS can connect and handle exchange of data, but it means flow should be also updated. So online options all time. Yes. So where IFS obviously has a connection kind of layer as well, but I think where we're spending a lot of time is being able to connect to multiple systems through REST and SOAP APIs. So things that maybe IFS might struggle with natively. So I got a question on the offline capability. So yes, the answer to that question is we do offer offline. So the way that will work is if I am building an app offline, I have this concept, and I don't need I don't think, I guess I can share my screen on it, but we have this idea of offline resources. So the offline resources is essentially kind of like this machine flows concept where I am querying all the data ahead, excuse me, ahead of time. And I'm laying out those queries in a machine step to go ahead so that when the user or the technician has their tablet, they're about to leave for the day, they click the offline. Let's see if I can show it here. I got to share my screen again. This go get offline data. So when I go get this work, I've already done it, which is why it's having the error. I've already queried or got the data for the day. But when I click offline data, that's actually going to execute probably a dozen queries to IFS while I'm online so that that data is available to me on the device when I am offline. We are scheduling, so the question was, are there any other upcoming webinars? The answer is yes. We are in North America starting to do them at a minimum once a quarter. And so that's the plan. What we'd like to do is, even using this group here, is try to get some ideas on webinar topics that would interest you. I took opportunity to just kind of share and again try to have really an unbiased discussion of what we're seeing, and this is just truly what we're seeing. And in the year and a half I've been here, this is what I'm seeing. Right, these 3 reasons why we're extending IFS. I would like to take that in future webinars to maybe address things like machine flow and get into the things like IoT in more detail. But at the end of the day, I want the audience and participants, like folks like yourself, to tell us what you would like to see, and I will put out a survey, and we can kind of make sure that we address topics that are of interest of you. Okay, IoT, yes, we can address that. IoT is a real thing for us. We are able to, we're in the cloud with all the solutions you've seen. We are in the cloud. So we have Flow in Azure, and Azure especially has IoT hub, so we can go ahead and collect data from devices and execute things like work orders off of that. But I'm certainly open to scheduling a second webinar to address that. I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you again for participating on this webinar. I'm really kind of encouraged by the turnout we saw. It's definitely going to motivate me and us to kind of continue to do these at a minimum of per quarter. So I want to thank everybody for your time, and look forward to future webinars. Thank you very much.